Welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast with Jacob Ayers, providing actionable content to help you along your journey to financial freedom through real estate investing. As the premier asset class, real estate has helped ordinary people just like you amass fortunes. The benefits of passive income from real estate investing will allow you to live a life you want. And now your host, entrepreneur, real estate investor, and apartment deal syndicator, Jacob Ayers.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, episode 248. Hi, I'm your host, Jacob Ayers. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, congrats on continually taking action. I know you're out there crushing it. I would love to hear about your successes, maybe some of your challenges. Please reach out to me. Tell me how it's going. I'd love to hear from you. You can do that at www.jacobayers.com. Well, I'm excited to bring on today's guest, and we're going to be discussing about how to manage and track the numbers of your rental properties. One of the most important aspects of managing a rental property is keeping track of the numbers. And if you're like me, that is just not something you're terribly interested in. You know, I'm always forward thinking, looking about acquisitions and how to grow my portfolio and scale. Well, today's guest, Devin Redmond, is the head of customer success at Stessa. And now Stessa is a free software platform that gives millions of real estate investors with single-family rentals and multifamily buildings a powerful new way to track, manage, and report on all of their properties in one place. Devin's long-running love-hate relationship with Excel uniquely positions him to help end investors' reliance on spreadsheets once and for all. So I'm excited to bring Devin on the show, talk all about how Stessa can help you manage your rental properties. So let's jump right into it. All right, today, welcome on the show, Mr. Devin Redmond. Devin, hey, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, Jacob. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's our pleasure. Devin, can you tell the audience members a little bit about who you are, your background, kind of your story, your journey? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, happy to. So I live in Northern California. I've been here since 2005. Before that, I had my first job in real estate as a tenant rep broker, representing tenants, lease negotiations, mostly for office space in LA. So that's how I got into the real estate business. From there, I went back to business school, worked for a big international owner developer. Yeah. So that was mostly acquisitions, asset management. And that's where I learned a ton about assessing how you're doing, keeping track of performance. This was often across, 12, 15 building portfolios with hundreds of tenants. And so I got real good at Excel. I got real good at Argus and real good at, working the numbers into something that I could then go present to business decision makers who are making, big investment decisions.
Yeah, that's good. So you've really kind of been in the business in some fashion or another for quite some time now, from doing tenant negotiations for commercial real estate to, back to education, now working in different assets of. Now you're at Stessa. So tell us a little bit about that. And that's obviously kind of going to be the focus of today's show, is talking about asset management for real estate investors and the likes.
Yeah, absolutely. Stessa's been around for a couple of years. It's a free financial management platform for rental property owners. So our key target is anyone from 1 to kind of 20 properties. The sweet spot is, 2, 3, 4, 5 as you're growing your portfolio. We've found that a lot of investors have a hard time keeping up, understanding how they're doing, how much money's coming in rent, what's going out in expenses, when are CapEx projects hitting, how does that affect cash flow? So these are all things you kind of want to keep on your radar. And if you've got one property, you can kind of, you sort of know what's going on, right? And can keep track of things with your spreadsheet, maybe a Google sheet, maybe you're working in Excel. But as you ramp up and really get into it, your portfolio grows, maybe you have partners. All these disparate pieces get very tricky to boil down, understand what's happening. Is this a property that's meeting my investment objectives or not? So those are just some of the things that we're trying to solve with Stessa. And the way we do it is similar to like Mint or Personal Capital, in that you can connect up your bank accounts, you can connect to your lender. All of that information flows in, when it's working properly, very seamlessly into our income and expense ledger. And then that lets you do easy sorting, running reports by month. All those sort of things get automated that you would typically be doing in Excel, hours at a time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so personally, I run customer success at Stessa. I was part of the original 4 or 5 people who got it really going 18 months ago now. And, my job in the beginning was to go out and talk to rental property owners. And we talked to hundreds to understand, what are your frustrations? What are you spending time on? How do you assess, how you're doing every month? Do you even do that?
Right. Right.
Then,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then figuring out, okay, how can we help solve some of these problems with the software concept that we've committed to?
Yeah, sure. Devin, as a real estate investor, right in that demographic that you're targeting, you're addressing a lot of pain points in my personal portfolio. So I can only imagine the problems you're solving for many real estate investors across the country. Devin, as a background, I am an engineer. So you would think I would be good with the numbers. And while I am, I just am completely lacking when it comes to accounting and like that hindsight perspective, right? I'm always go, forward thinking, trying to focus on acquisitions and, growing and scaling my portfolio. And the last thing I want to do is have to take time out of my day or week to sit down and do some forensic accounting about how my properties are tracking, even though that's a critical component of real estate investing. So software like Stessa would really help streamline that process for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one motivation for people to understand how they're doing is often when they're going to a bank, right, to get a new loan for a deal. And they're like, okay, well, send me your schedule of real estate owned. How are you actually doing? And then there's a little bit of a scramble with their CPA to pull everything together. These are the kinds of events that Stessa helps you be ready for, where you can pop in. And if you've been logging in every month, categorizing things, or making sure that our auto categorization is working properly for your specific line items, right, then you can run a quick report and say, here you go. In that sense, it's really an essential tool for helping to grow your portfolio quickly without a lot of headache.
Yeah, sure. When you're going and preparing your personal financial statements for future loans, or another big pain point of mine, Devin, come tax time, like so many people out there, you have to go and, do a lot of expense tracking, report your income and expenses on all your rental properties and figure out, what your end of year, net income was on all of those. So that for me is a huge pain point. And it's just another one of those things that this software Stessa would allow you to be more prepared come those times where you really need those accounting systems in place.
Yeah, for sure. 2 things I'll say on taxes. One is that we have a collaboration feature, so you can actually share access to your account with a CPA or a partner, spouse, whoever you're investing with. And you can do that on sort of full access edit rights basis or read only. So that's kind of a nice way to give your CPA access. They can go in, clean up a few things, run their own reports. And then the second thing I'll say is, where something like QuickBooks, it's a blank slate. It's very flexible, but it's also very challenging and overwhelming. You've never owned real estate before, or you're just getting set up, right? You got to set up all your own accounts, and it's very tricky and it takes a long time. So Stessa, right out of the box, we've got 50 plus categories, all real estate related. Those map directly to Schedule E. So we don't get you into the end zone for filing your taxes.
Yeah.
But we get you to kind of the 5-yard line, and then it's up to your CPA to get you over the, into the end zone.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So we try to tee it up as much as possible, knowing that, there's some nuances to everybody's situation.
Sure.
We can't cover all of those, so we don't try.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. Well, Devin, you mentioned you've talked to hundreds of real estate investors, property owners across the country. What are some common pain points you see with rental property investors?
Yeah, rent collection is definitely one of them. So we hear that often, especially with investors who have started out with, possibly lower priced properties, right? Especially Midwest and South.
Right.
Some are collecting, cash. Some are getting checks. Some are experimenting with Zelle or, other online payments. Cozy's done a good job of solving that specific narrow pain point.
Yeah, right.
It's something we may get into eventually too, just because it makes sense with our transaction ledger. We don't do rent collection right now. The other thing we hear a lot is this point about, I just don't know how I'm doing. I can't keep up, right? And so spreadsheets get bloated. They're always out of date. It's hard to communicate and share that information with partners or investors.
Yeah,
and
right.
then, what I hear like every day is really hard to find deals right now, right? And so prices are high, cap rates are still low, it's competitive. There's a lot of people getting into this particular, investment class. And so it's hard to find deals.
Yeah. I share all of those sentiments. Those are very common pain points for real estate investors. One of those being, tracking how your property is doing on a month-to-month basis. Because I think many real estate investors who first go out and buy their first rental property, they're doing it in their personal name, right? Signing on the loan and then just managing it from maybe their own personal balance sheet, paying the mortgage out of their own checking account, putting the rent back into the checking account, that type of system, right? I feel like as a real estate investor, once I turned the corner, one of the major things I really did that helped me was start by putting together a bank account for each property. And that really helped kind of compartmentalize my accounting for each property. So I think that was one thing that really helped. And once you do that, it sounds like you can link that to Stessa and then, kind of start pulling all of your income and expenses into the software that way.
Yeah, that's what I do personally. And that's what I would recommend to other investors, especially if you're going to take advantage of some of the new financial technology cloud-based platforms like Stessa. When you've got a one-to-one relationship between a bank account and a property, it makes things so much easier. You don't have to assign transactions to a particular property when you're tracking things. You just know that all the activity going on in that account is associated with this property.
Yeah.
So, if you've got an LLC entity structure set up, you can usually get the account in the name of the LLC. That makes things even easier. Get a credit card or a debit card. So when you're at Home Depot or whatever, you can just run those straight to that account. And then that makes it really easy. And then, Stessa also has an iOS app where you can do quick receipt scanning and it creates the transaction automatically. So, when those come in on a certain card, it's much easier to match it up with the property. And, the software can do a lot of work for you, regardless of whether using Stessa or, some other financial management software. That's sort of where we see the industry going, towards more integration. And a lot of the big banks are actually making their APIs available on a direct basis, where you get much more reliable data feeds too.
Yeah, sure. And Devin, let's just talk about how a bank would perceive you when you go to fill out another loan application for another rental property, because as a rental property investor, you're always trying to grow your portfolio and buy more and more properties, right? So when you go in there with a very organized personal financial statement, an accounting system, and records for your rental properties, you look much more professional and qualified to this potential lender.
Yeah, absolutely. If I were a mortgage broker or a lender, right, and you got a lot of people applying for loans, you got limited funds that you can allocate, and somebody comes in with a sort of janky spreadsheet printout they put together, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how believable is that really? It's hard to know. But when you're running it from Stessa or from a well-recognized, known accounting program, right, and it's nicely formatted and the column widths are right and all the numbers are standardized, right? It just has this imprint of authority that gives it some additional validity, I think.
Sure. And Devin, I like to say what gets tracked gets accomplished, right? Or what gets measured gets done. There's several variations of that phrase. Maybe I just butcher it. But one thing is, as a real estate investor, you're doing this for most likely cash flow, wealth generation, passive income, that kind of thing. So if you're tracking those things and you really know how your property is performing, that gives you tools to kind of make more informed and better decisions. Maybe you have a portfolio of 5 or 10 rental properties, and one is just, we've all got that one property that's just a headache property, the problem property, right? Maybe once you put those numbers down and really attracting them, you can kind of quantify that and realize, hey, this property is, losing money every month, or it's taking a lot of, expenses to keep it afloat. Maybe we see about carving that out of our portfolio. And then maybe you've got this market over here that's doing really well. You can just kind of take those numbers and use them as a tool to make more informed decisions.
Yeah. Hold sell decisions are tough, especially for new investors who haven't been there before. A lot of people, I think, come into it with this idea that they're just going to, grow their portfolio and buy more and more, right? And it's sort of this endless expansion, and that's the goal, the objective. But markets go up and down, right? And if you're not tracking performance against your personal investment goals, right, things can go a little bit off track or haywire, and you could end up in a down market owning more real estate and not being able to get out of the pieces that you need to for something going on in your life. So it's funny, the more I talk to real estate investors, the more I understand that a lot of their decision making is based on what they need in their life and things happening outside of their portfolio. And once you bring that input into the situation, you want to quickly be able to go understand, okay, which property do I need to sell now to raise capital for this other thing I have going on, medical expense, whatever, right? And having accurate numbers month to month makes that quick and easy.
Yeah, sure. What other benefits would you say, Devin, are to a rental property investor for having some kind of accounting or asset management software similar to Stessa?
Yeah, a couple of things that I'll mention. We did just launch a new secure document storage feature. So it's sort of a mini Dropbox inside of your Stessa account that we developed and is purpose-built for real estate. So similar to our transaction ledger where you've got real estate related categories, we actually have those for documents, and you can assign documents to a particular property. So things like leases, closing statements, appraisals, inspection reports, deeds, your first water bill, so you have your account number handy all the time.
Yeah, right.
Those sorts of things. You can just drag and drop folders at a time into Stessa, and then they're all there. And the long-term plan on that is to then integrate those documents into different aspects of the software. So your leases will be readily available from your rent roll. Things will kind of be linked up and make sense. So our product and engineering teams did a great job getting that feature, the first version of that feature right. And now they've got a long list of, improvements that we want to make to kind of really bake it into the rest of the product.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll mention is that, a lot of the investors we talk to are experimenting with short-term rentals as well. And we've just built a toggle on our rent roll where you can switch it over to short-term, and we'll do the math a little differently for you. And then you can also drag and drop your Airbnb monthly file into our transaction ledger, and we'll automatically parse all that data and give you an idea as to what's going on with host fees, cleaning, rental income. We've got separate categories set up to track a lot of that short-term rental activity.
Sure. Yeah, that's really cool. That's an interesting feature. And yeah, many people are getting into those short-term rentals, especially in today's environment. So yeah, it's a really cool feature. Now, one might be asking themselves, Devin, well, I know I need an accounting system set up, or I need some kind of system similar to Stessa in place, but I just don't want to take the time, or it's just a huge pain point for me to go in and link everything up and get everything sorted out. How hard is it going from zero to having a system set up and in place?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on which system you choose. If you're really at zero, it can be challenging to go directly to a full service accounting system if you're not a CPA. So, something like Stessa literally takes 5 minutes to set up a property. You type in your address, we ping a bunch of county records. We pull together as much as we can about the acquisition, because some of that information is usually public. You go get your tax assessment data, and we roll all that into a sort of starting dashboard that gets you going. So it's a nice, easy way to do it. If it ends up not being the right thing for you, you've spent 10 or 15 minutes setting it up and getting a feel for it. We've talked to a lot of people who spend hours setting up QuickBooks and then realize, I can't keep up with this type of full service platform. This is really built for a CPA, not me. And so then they're, working their way around to a different product. And then some people, especially if you have property managers, try to get away with, just relying on their reports. And that can work when you've got a property or two, but as your portfolio grows, you're getting hundreds of line items, maintenance requests, things going on. And we found that some property managers have this figured out, but for the most part, they struggle with telling you what it means. They just tell you.
Yeah, that's right.
And they leave it up to you to figure out, okay, what's really going on here? Is this, are you trying to get the right rent? I don't really know.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of back-end automation, but how hard is it to keep up with this accounting software, this tracking software on a monthly basis? Are you going in and, itemizing each one of your expenses, like this is rent, this is the utility bill, this is the mortgage? Is that pretty automated? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting there. And I would say we're getting better at it. If your bank is fairly reliable in terms of their data connections, and we can get reliable data every month in the same format, and the bank's not changing things up on us too much, that helps a lot. And we sort of figure out what's what, and we categorize things automatically. We do still give you a sort of needs review bucket that lets you go in and understand, okay, what did the computer do? What did it not do? What do I need to do to get to get back to current? Just because, it's not perfect. And there's a bit of an art to it. And while we've got some machine learning and a bunch of rules, we generally categorize 70 to 80% of transactions.
So there's
definitely you got to log in monthly, see what's going on, move a few things around. You may have your own system for, how you like to categorize things, especially between R&M and CapEx, right? A lot of those are judgment calls that you make with, yourself and your CPA, depending on your risk profile and what the actual work was. There's just no way for us to know for sure.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. It sure beats going to your personal credit card statement every month and figuring out what was your lunch bill versus what was your property expense, and then pulling that into maybe an Excel spreadsheet, if you're even doing that, right? So certainly automates and makes life easier as a rental property investor. So if you're like me, you can focus on those acquisitions and growing that portfolio and kind of those forward-thinking items that kind of more importantly excite me.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing a sort of ad hoc that way, looking at credit card statements, on a non-recurring basis, kind of whenever you have time or year, right? You're definitely missing tax deductions.
Yeah.
And, the way the system's set up, it's on you to claim all the deductions, right? And so anything you miss is, a higher tax bill at the end of the year. And you don't necessarily know what you're missing. You just run out of time and say, it's close enough, right?
Sure.
But when you get a process in place, you start realizing, depending on where you live and where your portfolio is, you can track mileage and meals, and all those things will add up over the years.
Yeah, right. Well, what are some other unexpected advantages that one might realize once they get set up in a property software system like Stessa, Devin?
Yeah, it's real, it depends on the system. One thing we've tried to do is make it so you can integrate Stessa into your sort of daily or weekly routine. So for the documents feature, for example, you can actually, let's say you're, sending a final signed lease to a tenant via email. You can just add documents at Stessa.com to the BCC field and then hit send, and then boom, that lease will show up as a lease, hopefully for the right property, if we're doing our job right, in your Stessa account. And so it's this, communication and filing storage at the same time. And you can do the same thing with receipts. So if you're forwarding a receipt or you get a receipt via email, you just send it to receipts@Stessa.com. And we match your email address up with the email on the account and then create a transaction for it automatically.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then the receipt gets set up in there as an attachment. Then at the end of the year, your CPA, you run your tax package report, whatever you're doing, that receipt is in there for reference, audit trail, whatever you need in the future.
Yeah, that's really good. That's awesome.
So there's little tweaks like that where we're trying to make it, a seamless part of your daily routine, make it easy to get things done.
So when one's looking at Stessa, they might think, wow, all these features, this has to be an expensive software. You alluded to this was free software. So tell us a little bit about the functionality that comes with this free software and how you guys have made that available to rental property investors en masse.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a free platform. We will eventually do some premium services, like maybe rent collection, maybe some advanced reporting, like more complicated depreciation, things that you would typically pay your CPA for. And those will be kind of a paid tier premium pricing structure. Because there's so much data on the platform, right? So let's say you've got 6 single family home rental properties in central Indiana. There may be 100 other users on Stessa with similar portfolios, right? Or properties in the same place. And so we can do a real easy benchmarking to see, okay, what's a competitive landlord insurance rate for this type of property in central Indiana, right? And we can go out to whoever's paying more than that and say, hey, here's an offer. Here's an insurance carrier to go talk to who's really competitive in central Indiana. And then we would earn a fee on that referral.
Yeah, right.
While our users benefit from a very targeted, relevant offer to save money. That's kind of the long-term business model. Right now, we're focused on building our audience and our user base so that we have the data to make those sorts of intelligent offers and the platform to then go forward and develop some premium services.
Yeah, really cool. Well, I think an interesting thing that you guys are doing at Stessa, Devin, is you don't just have somebody in the background crunching all these numbers for you. You're really implementing a lot of technology from the things you've alluded to, like the machine learning and possibly artificial intelligence. I don't know. I just like to throw out that term. I don't really know what it means, to be honest.
I don't either. And it's mostly artificial now and sometimes intelligent.
There you go. But yeah, you guys are really implementing some cool features with technology there to kind of leverage and, analyze these invoices and leases and bank statements and things like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, just, candidly, it's a little bit rough. So we like to describe it as sort of magical, and it is sometimes. And it is a lot of the time, right? But, there's a million different formats of receipts. Every lease looks a little bit different, right?
Yeah,
Some
right.
are scanned PDFs with a crappy scanner. And so there's limitations and a lot of variance in what's coming in. And so you don't always get exactly the right thing coming out, but it's getting better. The more we implement it, the more feedback we get from real users about how it's working, what they're seeing, then we can go in and make the tweaks we need. And you plod along and make a little bit better every week.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Devin, if you were to give advice to a real estate investor about, kind of this broad subject of tracking finances and having some kind of asset management software, what would you tell somebody?
Yeah, part of it's a personal decision. So you got to figure out what works best for you, right? If you're a little bit old school and you already spend a lot of time on your computer every day, right? Maybe a filing cabinet and printed documents is what you want. And that's okay, right? If you are someone who's a little more early adopter in terms of technology, or you've got a busy life generally, right? And investors and growing portfolio, doing something online with a out of the box system that's purpose built for real estate is probably going to be a better solution than a big stack of papers on your desk and sort of emails all over the place, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I think it's really a personal decision. Depends if you're investing with partners or not. And then, you need a good, especially when you're starting out, you need a good CPA who knows real estate. And so that should be
completely agree with that.
Yeah, that should be part of your package. A lot of people try to do it themselves to save the money, right? If you only have one property, can you really afford the cash flow hit to pay a CPA? And I think, if you're only ever going to have one property, then maybe you don't need it. But if you're going to get into this and understand all the nuances and the issues, having that CPA that you can call, not on April 14th, right? Call them in June, July, August, when they don't have as much to do, and you can actually get out in front of next year's tax planning, right? And, get their thoughts on what accounting system you're going to use and how you're going to set it up and what's going to make it, good for your partnership so that the handoff is seamless, because that'll keep your fees down too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm really big into processes, systems, and couple that with a good team, right? So when you've got this, functioning system in the background like Stessa that you can hand over to a good team member being your CPA, that makes your life just so much easier.
Yeah, it does. And we found that a lot of CPAs have really good advice about operational stuff, about CapEx, about when to do different things. And I would encourage people to find someone who's interested in those things and can also give that sort of advice, that it's not just about getting the thing, tied up and filed every year.
Yeah, sure. Well, Devin, if the audience members want to learn more about Stessa or, check into it, where's the best place for them to learn more about it?
Yeah, check out our website. That's stessa.com, stessa.com. It's really easy to set up a property, as I mentioned. That's really the best way to get a feel for it. 2 or 3 minutes in, you can see the dashboard, understand how we organize data, and figure out if it's a good fit for you. And then we also have a blog where we write about all kinds of things related to rental property owners. And then I personally have written a couple blog posts for Bigger Pockets lately.
Okay.
Something new that I've been spending some time on, and it's been really fun. So you can find those on Bigger Pockets as well.
That's awesome. So that's stessa.com, stessa.com. being a free software, it doesn't hurt to go there, try it out, set up a property, see if you like it. It doesn't take very long, as Devin says. And then if you want it for more information, resources, there's some blogs there, and of course some videos and things like that. And then Devin,
yeah, I'll just say we'll also be at the Bigger Pockets conference in Nashville in
awesome.
October. Yeah,
okay.
So if any of your listeners are going to be there, definitely drop by the booth, say hello, let us give you a quick demo.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Yeah.
We'd love to meet folks. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Devin, hey, it's been a lot of fun talking with you about Stessa and about property management just in general. So thanks so much for coming on the show today. Look forward to having you back on in the future, and good luck at the Bigger Pockets conference coming up.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Awesome, Devin. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
All right, that wraps up this week's episode with our guest, Devin Redmond. Hey, I really hope you got a ton of actionable content from today's episode with Devin. As you can see, Stessa is a really powerful tool, free for landlords just like you. I'm going to check it out myself. I recommend you do the same. Like Devin said, it's free and easy to set up an account. So let's go jump in there, see if we can't get just a little bit better with managing our rental properties today. Well, hey, for all those resources and everything we mentioned in the show, you can find those in the show notes simply by touching your phone screen likely or going to www.jacobayers.com/248. Well, till next week, engineer the lifestyle you want.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom podcast, providing you actionable content to build your real estate empire. Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for personal advice. The opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have a potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of the Real Estate Way to Wealth and Freedom, LLC, exclusively.